It's 60 days out, and while Kamala claims she represents a new path forward, it's really just deja vu all over again. After all, just as they did in 2020, the Democrats' key strategy here, as I mentioned earlier, is to hide their candidate from scrutiny. And just like Biden had his ice cream runs, Kamala has her snack food fun.
I would love to give you a bag of pretzels to take back.
Give me a bag of pretzels to give Doug, because
okay,
he
great,
actually
okay,
would be really
okay.
upset if I did not bring him because I can tell you that he like secretly eats pretzels at night.
Does
and
he
he's
really?
like, and I'm like,
Okay.
honey, you got to slow down on the pretzels.
Did she say, and I'm like? Duh. All right, who believes her husband secretly eats pretzels? Is that what she said? It sounds fake to me. But really, it's just rinse, repeat. The deep states boarded the Russia Express as well. Talk about deja vu. Same old claims of election interference, all of it a pretext to get back into the censorship game. And now, speaking of election interference, the not very special counsel Jack Smith, he refused to quit after the Supreme Court's immunity ruling and got a new grand jury impaneled to issue a superseding indictment. And now, the presiding Trump-hating federal judge, Tanya Chutkan, could not be happier. The briefing schedule is set, and Democrats, remember, they always need their insurance policy. Let's go back to 2015, my friends. And they always have their press attachés standing at the ready.
This it's very tantalizing to think that we may actually see, I guess, what amounts to like a mini trial before the election.
It may not be a mini trial, but the briefing may include, as you said, grand jury minutes, witness statements, and a whole bunch of factual evidence that the public may or may not see, because Judge Chutkan can say, I'm going to seal that from the public. But if she doesn't, then the public will read the facts, the allegations that the special counsel has.
Now, imagine the media's reaction if, I don't know, some Republican-appointed judge in Alabama was harassing Kamala Harris 2 months out of an election. I mean, they'd go nuts. They'd cry political bias and improper influence on voting. But when the goal is to get Donald Trump, all their vaunted norms, they're all out the window. Look, by the end of this, they'll want Judge Chutkan up on Mount Rushmore.
She is not going to be swayed by any external pressures, about any external calendars.
Judge Tanya Chutkan is consummately prepared and incredibly professional.
Judge Tanya Chutkan, let me tell you, Jen, she is all business. She is going to come in with a plan.
All business, yeah, all business about trying to put Trump in jail. Now, with a hearing coming up next month, Politico is openly suggesting an October surprise is in the offing. But it's not at all surprising that the judge is already signaling her disdain for her fellow jurist, Eileen Cannon's ruling, which of course dismisses the Trump classified docs case in California. Cannon had based her ruling on the court's immunity case.
Judge Chutkan tipped her hand. She said that she did not find Judge Cannon's opinion particularly persuasive. That means in judge speak, that's, I don't think it holds water at all.
And apparently, when Trump's the target, neither does the generally held view among judges that they shouldn't use their dockets to influence the outcome of an election. According to Fox's reporting from the courtroom, Chutkan said that the election and what needs to happen before is not relevant to her, and that the court isn't concerned with the electoral schedule. Once again, when the Democrats want their way, meaning when an election is on the line, the old norms, the established and unspoken judicial code of ethics, it's all gone. It's all wiped away. None of it applies. Remember, they justified surveilling Trump's campaign back in 2015. They lied about the fake dossier. They lied about the Hunter Biden laptop. They entrapped Michael Flynn, all on the basis of the bogus argument that Trump was some kind of threat to democracy, the biggest America has ever seen. And look, how can any of you ever disagree with the Cheneys?
Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris. My dad believes, and he's said publicly, that there's never been an individual in our country who is as grave a threat to our democracy as Donald Trump is.
This all comes full circle, doesn't it? Bottom line, once again, just like last time, the Democrats have a lot of money. They have the press in their back pockets. They have the old neoconservative establishment on their side. They have the lawfare cudgel. But they have a terrible, and I mean terrible, candidate. But this formula failed America with Biden, and it will fail America again. Unless, that is, voters say, sorry, we've seen this movie and we know how it ends, in tragedy. Joining me now, Jonathan Turley, George Washington University law prof, Fox News contributor. Professor Turley, we're going to get your reaction to that in a moment. But first, I want to start with the big news of the day, that Judge Juan Merchan has moved Trump's sentencing in his hush money trial to after the election. Watch.
The Manhattan DA witch hunt against me has been postponed because everyone realizes that there was no case because I did nothing wrong. It's a witch hunt. It's an attack by my political opponents in Washington, D.C. Comrade Kamala Harris and radical left opponents for purposes of election interference. That's all that was.
Professor, your reaction to the news today, two different outcomes in the court, two different courts.
Well, it was very surprising to see Judge Merchan in this letter suddenly have this epiphany that there's an election going on, because he showed no sensitivity towards the election when he had, in my view, a radically overbroad gag order, and he kept the leading candidate for the presidency in his courtroom. And more importantly, he ruled rather one-sidedly throughout that trial. I was in that courtroom and I was shocked by many of his rulings. He now says, well, you know what, I don't want people to get the wrong impression, and so I'm going to sentence him after the election. Judge Chutkan in D.C. is going to move the schedule till after the election as well. These are the two perceived most hostile judges to the former president. And the expectation is that if Trump loses the election, both of them are likely to throw him headfirst into a wood chipper. I mean, that we're looking at November and December for these critical dates, and it's very clear that he's going to be called to account by both of these judges in a way that many are likely to have objections to, but that will come after the election.
And one thing that kept coming up today was that in this, in these hearings, these pretrial hearings in the Chutkan case and the election interference case, new information, Politico described it as a potential October surprise, new affidavits, new information could come into play, could be entered into the record. Well, that in and of itself, the briefing schedule could affect the outcome of the election.
It could, and you know, Judge Chutkan has been controversial from the start, because in an earlier case, before the case against Trump was ever mounted, she suggested that Donald Trump should be in her courtroom answering for the January 6th riots. And that led many to suggest that she really should recuse herself. That's a very odd statement for a judge to make when someone later appears, as you suggested, in your courtroom. So this is likely the controversy is likely to grow with this schedule. But much of the action is likely to occur after voters go to the polls. You know, Karl Rove made a good point when we were on this morning and suggested that if Merchan was really going to send President Trump to jail or impose some draconian measure, he could very well have elected him president. Because in the past, President Trump has gone up in the polls when people watched what was happening in Manhattan. So for whatever his reason in delaying, the voters now are going to be pretty much the largest jury in history. I mean, what they decide on Election Day is likely to have a huge impact here. It could very well destroy the federal cases of Jack Smith. He would never see the inside of a courtroom. But also, Merchan would be hard-pressed to impose a jail term if this is the president-elect. So that election is going to be a very significant influence on what occurs in November and December.
Well, if Trump wins, right, and this keeps going after the election, they just want to muck up his transition work. I mean, they will not leave this man alone. I'm sorry. But I mean, if he's president, then he's going to have to deal with this, at least for some period of time. That's why I think the doing the motions work in October and in September, To me, that's more evidence that there's something else afoot here. Jonathan, your analysis, fantastic as always. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.